Welcome to today's program on justice, a lawyer's hangout where lawyers dissect legal issues with intent to create awareness, educate, and enlighten the public. Joining me as co-host today is Miss Munirat Adama. And our guest on today's episode is our esteemed Leonard Silk, a distinguished senior advocate of Nigeria and a legal luminary who has made remarkable contributions to the legal profession in Nigeria, the current Dean, Faculty of Law, Veritas University, Abuja. And it is our honor to welcome the highly respected Professor Josephine Agbonika. Hi, I'm your host for today, and I am Cecilia Meme. Today, we will be discussing taxation in Nigeria, structure and administration. Welcome, Leonard Silk. Let's quickly dive into the conversation. It is a pleasure for you to be here. We are honored to have you right here at the LJE Nigeria studio. Welcome once again, ma'am.
Thank you very much, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So, our topic today is about taxation in Nigeria. So, our first question, what do we imply when we talk about tax administration in Nigeria, and what are the tax structures known under the Nigerian law?
Right. When you talk about tax in Nigeria, you are relating to those monies or levies that the government charges its citizens to bring about a good financial structure to the system. And when you talk about this structure, Nigeria has a tripartite kind of structure in the sense that it runs across all the tiers of government, running from the federal to the state to the local government.
Okay.
Now, at the federal level, we have the FIRS, running that structure. At the state level, we have the State Board of Internal Revenue.
Okay.
We also have at the local government committees.
Okay.
All these bodies have their respective taxes for the purpose of administration, for the purpose of collection.
Okay.
Each tier is not meant to dive into the tier belonging to another level of government, because already there is the taxes and levies approved list of collection that has been stated out by the legislation, which means each tier is meant to collect taxes that relate to it.
To them, okay. So, ma, are there any principles that govern taxation in Nigeria?
Well, the principles that govern taxation in Nigeria are not too different from what Adam Smith had proposed.
Okay.
In the early part of administration of taxes. And usually you will find that every administration of tax would want a situation where there is some kind of equity, some level of fairness in respect of what they administer. Apart from that, there should be some administrative efficiency in the sense that we don't expect that when you finish collecting tax, you spend all the money towards administration, like towards payment of the people that are helping to collect and all that. So we need some kind of administration. And of course, we also expect that if tax is to be paid, we not only think of equity, we think about the law itself. There has to be some kind of certainty.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense that where you want to make payment of tax, you don't even know what you are supposed to pay. There must be some kind of certainty in the sense that the legislation itself must create some clarity that would help you to identify what you are supposed to pay.
Okay.
Tax is a very serious business. It's not something that you will begin to presume. When the issue of payment comes, you should know
what to pay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Each type of tax should be able to tell what payment is all about in respect of payment of taxes. And you find that with that, the canons of tax are quite similar in whatever way you want to look at it. What is important is that there must be some kind of straightforward situation, no complexity that will make it difficult. I mean, I don't need to be looking at the dictionary each time I want to know what I'm supposed to pay, as tax. It should be simple enough for me to be able to identify by just looking at the legislation what my tax liabilities are, as that will make it easy for taxpayers.
Okay, ma'am.
Let's think. Under the structures, what are the various taxpayers in? What are the various taxpayers in Nigeria must comply with?
Now, Nigeria has a list of taxes that citizens are expected to comply with. We have, a varied list of taxes. For example, we have the company's income tax. If you are doing if you are dealing in a company and you are making profits in that regard, the law expects that, yes, you would pay that tax. If you are an individual, you are in business, or you are earning some kind of money, some kind of income that comes to your pocket, the law expects that personal income tax is there. You should pay it. And sometimes you find that within this enclave, there are employers who will be employing some of these people. The law expects that, look, you must withhold their taxes so that you can remit that tax to the government at the end of the day. So we also have that room for withholding taxes. If you are selling your asset, we have capital gains tax waiting for you. So you must be able to pay your, whatever profit you've made, whatever gain you have made in respect of that asset that you are selling. And of course, there is the bumper one, that relates more to our oil, the petroleum tax. That is also there if you are having to deal with taxes in the upstream sector. The law expects that you will pay tax. And of course, if you're a company, an added tax that you are going to be paying is the education tax, which is compulsory for all companies, 2% charge, although there are now now conversations relating to reform and all that. And of course, we have the VAT, which is 7.5% for now. But, perhaps if the reform is adopted, we may be looking at how to streamline what is to be paid up to a particular point and all that. So basically, these are the kind of taxes that you would find at the federal, but you see at the state government, the state level also, and the local government level, you would also have a variety of taxes ranging from tenement rates, television taxes, whatever form of levy that you find within the law, slaughter labs. There are a host of them, so many. And that is why there are now proposals for reduction of the number of taxes to reduce the burden of taxpayers so that they will streamline what they are supposed to pay at every point in time.
Are there any deadlines or duration when such tax must be paid?
Certainly, depending on the legislation that you are dealing with, and depending on the kind of profit or income that you are dealing with. For example, if you are dealing with a company, there is definite period that within 6 months of its operation, taxes must be paid. If you are dealing with individuals, the expectation is that within 90 days of, the person's employment, something will begin to be paid. So basically, we have all those. If you're talking on VAT, we will expect that as you consume, payments being made at least within 1 month. There should be some kind of remittance relating to what you have consumed. So definitely there are rules that guide every type of tax that is paid.
So what would encourage our viewers out there is to ensure that they get these durations at their fingertips so they
Certainly.
remit timely
Yes.
as well. Okay,
Certainly.
let's see. Are there any tax incentives offered by the government? If yes, how can one be eligible for such?
Now, the issue of incentives again would depend on the kind of
Tax.
transaction, the kind
Okay.
of tax
Okay.
that you are dealing with. Now, when you talk about incentives, it is not a way of saying you should not pay
No pay.
tax.
Okay.
It is a way of saying let's encourage you to come into the tax net,
System. Okay.
come into the tax system
Okay.
with ease. Sometimes a government will decide to give what we call pioneer, incentive,
Yeah.
pioneer relief. That is usually given when you are delving into an area that is not very common within a particular system,
Yeah.
let's say Nigeria,
Yeah.
like when the GSM first started. Nigeria decided to give a tax holiday
Okay.
to those who were interested in investing in the GSM.
Business.
And to a very large extent, that encouraged people. If you notice, at that time, there were so many companies
Yeah. Coming into that line of business.
Yes, they were all coming into the line of business because of the tax holiday. And as soon as we discovered that that had come to stay, there was no need for any holiday again.
Anymore.
Because, it has become...
It has flourished, yeah.
It has flourished. There's no need for us to give any company 10 years to go on holiday for a
Holiday.
tax. So really, those kind of incentives are given, or you find that a particular area is not dealing with agriculture very well.
Okay.
You can give that kind of incentive, maybe to encourage farmers to go back. You can give them some grants, or you give them relief in respect of tax payment, so that the added liability that would have further discouraged them from dealing in that kind of business is not there, like, a dragon to stop them from dealing in taxes. So basically, those are the kind of... And of course, there are a host of
Many other
many
tax.
other reliefs,
Incentives,
many
yeah.
other incentives, even the reliefs that government decides to give individuals. In some cases, you will find that that in itself is you want to make payment of tax. The government is not likely to tax all your, earnings. They are likely to give you first the consolidated relief of 200,000, which means your first 200,000, nobody is going to touch it. And even with the reform, there is
A lot.
there is going to be room for increment of that kind of relief. So
Okay.
those are
So
the things you
basically,
find.
these incentives, eligibility would now be dependent on the kind of business
Yes.
the person wants to go into. Okay. And
Because there are even people who will decide to go into, like, a place that has not been developed at all.
okay.
No light, no water, no road. You want to go into business in that kind of area, you can also be given some kind of incentives
Okay.
that will encourage you to do business.
Okay, this brings me to our next questions. How are taxes assessed? How do people know what they are meant to pay as tax, ranging from individuals to companies? And then we have the category of incorporated trustees, NGOs, associations. How do they assess this tax?
Like I said, taxes are based on legislation.
Okay.
They are not the kind of things that you assume. You sit down and assume that, okay, I would like to pay this tax, or I prefer to pay this tax. It's not about preference. It's not about your likeness. It's about the fact that the legislation has captured you.
Okay.
You know the rule of interpretation. If legislation wants you to be properly captured, then legislation has a duty
Okay.
to properly bring you under the net.
Okay. Okay.
Now, in bringing you under the net of tax, what you should first look at is this tax. What does it make me liable to pay? Now, if it is companies' income tax, how much is your profit? Have you earned up to 25 million within that year? If you haven't earned, then of course it gives room for you to be able to deduct your taxes in that regard, which means you're not liable to pay taxes. There are discussions for the amount to be increased to 50 million. Now, if you are dealing with personal income tax, like I said earlier, your earning again will determine. If you are earning up to, let's say, 500,000 in a year, your first 200 is out of the calculation. And then you are looking at the next 7%, the next 300 of that money, 7% is graduated. Then the next 11%, then the next, it keeps going like that, okay? Until you get to the upper limit of 24%. And that is how tax is graduated. Now, in VAT, value added tax, it's not the issue. You need to look at the legislation again. The thing you are paying for, is it one of the things that has been tax exempt? If it is tax exempt, then you don't pay tax. Even if it is something that ordinarily anybody would have wanted to charge you tax in respect of, once it is tax exempt, you don't pay tax in respect of it.
Okay.
For other things, the tax amount is 7.5. If it is not one of the things that has been exempted or zero rated by the Act, then of course you would pay your 7.5%, depending on your rate of consumption. But when we talk about VAT, the less you consume, the less you pay. So if you are not consuming a particular thing, the law cannot
Tax you on that
tax you
particular
on that
thing.
particular thing because you have no business with it.
Okay. Let's quickly go on a short break. We'll be right back.
Okay.
What comes into your mind when you hear about Ohana? Ohana means family and is a Hawaii word. Here at Ohana Homes, we try to let you know that we have you in mind and as well we care about your success. Now, what makes us different, unique, and quite outstanding from other real estate companies? What makes us unique and different is that we are a real estate company that combines joint ventures, co-ownership, real estate technology to be able to create wealth for individuals and you as well who is listening to this right now. Anytime, any day, feel free to check us out by following any of our social media handles. Follow us on social media, Instagram, ohanahomes_ng, Facebook as well, ohanahomes_ng. Thank you.
Thanks for staying with us. Welcome back. So before we went on break, our learned sick was notifying us about the fact that tax are assessed based on your income. So learned sick, in view of this, I would love to ask a very direct question for the benefit of those that have business entities registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission. Do businesses pay tax?
Of course.
Okay.
Businesses pay tax. Businesses are even categorized. Some are large, some are medium, some are micro. So really, it depends on the strength of the business.
Okay.
And as long as they make profit, then
They must pay tax. How about companies?
companies,
Straight up.
different realm entirely. They pay companies income tax, and that one is, again, graduated depending on how much profit they make. If it's the small company not earning up to 25 million, then of course the tax rate is 0.
Okay.
They don't pay.
They don't pay.
If it's between 25 and 100, they pay 20. Above
That's 20%.
Yes.
Okay.
Above 100, they pay 30%. So
30%.
So really, it depends on the capacity
Of the company.
But whatever be the case, you will find that.
Okay, how about NGOs, non-governmental organizations?
Now, non-governmental organizations, because of the kind of base under which they come, You know, they are charitable
Organizations.
Most of the things that they do
Strong.
uh,
Free.
for free.
Yeah, humanitarian
Humanitarian causes. Therefore, the government
exempts them.
from paying tax.
Okay.
However,
Okay.
if they find themselves doing business under this enclave, no matter what you call it, even if it's an NGO, they turn out with a business that is earning them, some kind of fund,
Income, yeah.
you will find that the government is likely to be looking in that direction.
Okay.
Or they have some employees within their office that they need to pay, then of course,
Personal income tax will come into play. Okay.
They have some things that they need to sell to make profit. VAT is going to start looking their way. So whichever way, you will find that for you to enjoy this tax exemption, you must purely be a non-governmental, non-profit
Organization.
doing charity.
Okay. And lastly, under the company categories, we have companies limited by guarantee as well, which is similar to NGO. Do they pay taxes?
Those ones are also limited because of their limitation.
Yes.
You find that the law also smiles on them.
Okay.
So whatever they are going to pay is going to be determined by the profit that they make.
Okay.
Not whether they are there or not.
Okay.
Let us say, what are the challenges with taxation in Nigeria generally?
Now, in Nigeria, you find that the first challenge you would find is bad governance.
Okay.
Now, where a taxpayer it's not, when we call it voluntary payment, it is still compulsory.
Okay.
Because whether you like it or not, you still have to
Pay.
When a person volunteers his payment, there are some things that he would expect as a citizen. Although those things are not justiciable, as in he cannot take anybody to court for not providing. I mean, you can't take the government to court for not providing a school within your area or for not providing a hospital. But those are expectations that somebody who is paying tax would be happy to know that the government also has his interest at heart. Let people begin to see those things that the government is doing with the taxes that are being collected. You will find that if that is the case, many people are likely to volunteer and be happy to pay these deductions. Otherwise, you find that there will be a lot of apathy in tax payments. Apart from that government solution, you find that people are unaware.
Okay.
Sensitization needs to go on a lot to make people realize that, look, taxes are not things that you can choose not to pay.
Sure.
They are compulsory payments. As a citizen, you owe a duty. It's a civic responsibility on you. You must pay your taxes. There is nothing you can do. For you to make any claim to what you think you are entitled to from the government, your starting point should be whether or not you have made your
own contributions
to the government. If you have not made that contribution, then of course you cannot be talking about what the government has for you. And of course, the taxes. Now we're talking about reform. We're hoping that the reform would bring a lot of light to the understanding of the common man.
Okay.
If I want to pay tax, personal income tax, for instance, I don't only have to go into the 1993 personal income tax. I need to look for the FIRS Act of 2007. I need to look for the taxes, for the Tax Amendment Act of 2011. I need to look for the Finance Act, all in the name of wanting to pay tax. A lot of people, that apathy, in fact, they are already discouraged. They have other things to do. They don't want to be going from legislation to legislation just in the name of paying
tax. Yeah.
Hopefully, when the tax act, the tax bill becomes an act,
Yes.
we are going to see a revision of that situation. all the taxes. They now want to harmonize all
All
of
of
them
them.
into one document. That once you get that document, you know you are dealing with taxes, and you can look from one section to the other to find what you are supposed to be paying. And of course, a lot of people don't understand the tax laws. Tax laws must be made so simple so that every person who reads it will be able to understand what, I mean, if you keep using complex terms that people don't understand, you only make them run away from taxes. So those are the kind of things that people should begin to look at, and the government should also begin to look at and ensure that the right things are being done. Tax education, there is no compromise to that. People must understand. A lot of people, ask many people on the street, they don't even know what you're talking about when you talk of taxes. And even those who know, they always think the easy way out is to evade tax.
Evade it.
But they must know also that evasion of tax is a crime.
Crime. Yeah.
And that there are, organs that have been set up to be able to try
Track
them
it. Yeah.
and to track those things that they are doing that are wrong. Therefore, we must be able to let ourselves know the extent to which we can avoid. Avoidance is allowed.
Yes.
But evasion is not allowed. So we should be able to know the extent to which
It can be
avoidance
avoided.
becomes a
Yeah.
crime.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, you may be
Right.
thinking you are avoiding, but at the end of the day, you may be charged for evasion
Evasion
of crime, evasion of
tax.
taxes. So those are the kind of things we should begin.
Okay, Lenetic, don't you also think that one of the challenges we have with taxation is this issue of multiplicity? Because there are persons that out there, you hear complaints of people saying, "Oh, today so and so people came. They told me I need to pay this tax. Tomorrow, another set of people they are coming for different kind of tax, and the next one you're hearing you have to pay tax to the state government." Don't you think that's a challenge? Because we get lots of complaints from Nigerians about that particular issue.
That is definitely a big challenge, and the government is aware of it.
Okay.
Because of the taxes and levies approved list of collection, you find that some of the taxes run
Into each other.
Yes.
Therefore, if you are not careful, you end up paying the same thing that you had paid
Before.
through another tier of
On government.
So the taxes and levies approved list of collection tries its best to ensure that if you are not in tax
Collectors.
administrator, you should not collect tax. Today, you find a lot of people with whatever they put on the road to make people pay one form of road tax or vehicle tax or whatever kind of tax that they make them pay. No legislation to back it up. And so the law itself, having recognized this, one of the reforms that they are thinking about is a situation where people clearly will know how many
Taxes they are meant to pay.
and they are thinking of making it a single digit number so that no matter what, the number of taxes will not be more than 9. So whatever happens, all those extra taxes can be combined into one subhead instead of having like 60 taxes to worry about, in which case every tier will be jumping from one end to the other.
The other. Okay. She has answered the next question. Now is it coming? Okay.
Well, we'll still ask regardless. But how can Nigerians be encouraged to remit their taxes and not invade tax obligation in the face of multiple taxations and even taxation generally?
Right. People have to be made to understand that tax is not something that they should run away from. Look, even as far back as biblical times, the Pharisees tried to run away from tax.
Tax.
And they asked Jesus, is it right to pay tax to Caesar or not? And all he did was, give me the coin. And he saw the face of Caesar and he said, give unto Caesar what
belongs to Caesar
and what belongs to God you give to
gives
God.
to God.
Which means the fact that you are paying your taxes will not stop your tithes.
Sure.
You should be able to walk along those two arenas very well without any confusion. And to further buttress this, when he was asked whether he was going to pay the temple tax, he said yes. He asked Peter, who was a fisherman, to look into the mouth of a fish and bring out 4 drachma, which he used to pay for the two of them. They were both supposed to pay 2 each. So with the 4 that he found in the mouth of the fish, he was able to pay for their
Taxes.
which means the concept of tax should not be something that we will run away from. But like I said, for you to make a citizen know what he is paying for is crucial.
Very crucial.
In Lagos State, for example, people, even a market woman that you meet in the market, middle of the market, will tell you, I'm going to pay my tax. And you wonder, what does she look?
Tax.
Then she does. She will tell you, Eko Nibaje. Eko Nibajeti. If you understand Yoruba, it means Eko will not spot.
Yeah.
Which means it is from this tax that they are going to pay everything that they need
And make
to
Eko
get
better.
in that particular arena.
Yeah.
The whole of Eko, you want a toilet to be cleaned within the market, that tax.
So do it.
You want the surrounding to be clean, that tax. You want water, so everything is zeroed into that area, and people seem to know it. They appreciate it. So if they can appreciate it in Lagos, I'm sure we can appreciate
it elsewhere, everywhere.
Yes.
everywhere.
Yeah.
We only need to know that there is a reason for payment of tax. And we need to encourage ourselves to pay
Tax.
taxes. You want security, you should zero it in on your tax. Everything revolves
Around tax.
tax when it comes to what you want from the government.
Okay.
You don't get what you have not put in.
Putin, yeah. So let's see, the newly introduced tax reform bill, will it positively affect tax orientation in Nigeria?
To a very large extent, I think it will. But we also need, there are 4 bills altogether. We only need to sensitize people, let them understand what these bills, and I think a lot of bodies like yours are doing a lot to sensitize Nigerians.
Yeah.
If they don't understand what taxes are, even if you make it one,
naira, they will not pay. Yeah, that's true.
So that is the situation that we're having. And I think the reform is looking in that direction, in the direction of sensitizing the masses, making everybody understand that tax is important. Tax, yes, nobody feels good to pay money, but you should also realize that that money you are paying is not a loss to you. It is going to make things
better. Okay. In view of this, would implore you to shed more light on this tax reform bill.
Right. The tax reform bill is going to come in different facets. One is going to deal with the organ of tax. Like now we have the FIRS, as at the helm of affairs. What this bill is trying to do now is to create what we call the Nigeria Revenue Service.
Okay.
Which means instead of referring to it as the Federal Inland Revenue Service, which is not directed at any particular nation, now we want to own it.
Okay.
And call it ours. Then, of course, apart from that, there is also a reform that is going to deal with the organs that are likely to deal with tax, like the Nigeria Revenue Board, which is the Joint Tax Board.
Okay. That's JTB.
JTB, and the Tax Appeal Tribunal. And now they have introduced the ombuds. That's the ombudsman.
Okay.
To try and mediate in respect of tax issues before it eventually goes to litigation. Goes to litigation. Then, of course, we have a bill that is going to harmonize all the taxes into one legislation, which means all the single taxes that we had before are now going to go.
Okay.
We won't begin to look for companies' income tax in a different legislation.
Okay.
Look for personal income tax elsewhere. Look for VAT else. It's going to be the Nigerian tax.
Okay.
In legislation, which will now deal with all the taxes that we are supposed to announce. And of course, we are going to have another one to deal with administration of taxes. You know, in the past, the body that was dealing with administration of taxes, the legislation that was dealing with them was the FIRS Act of 2007, which means while you are looking at the main legislation, perhaps the personal income tax, when it comes to administration, ignore everything that the personal income tax provides and go into the FIRS Act until you get
Information.
to administer. So the FIRS Act now provided an umbrella modules for administering taxes. So now what they are trying to do is to now create a body that will deal generally with administration. We will no longer have all the administrative issues in different legislation in scattered bits. So basically, those are the things that the reforms are going to be dealing with.
Okay, so this reform basically is going to make us have like a centralized tax system.
Certainly.
Okay.
Certainly.
Okay, finally, before we take our exit, what can we do to ensure that our laws are understood in the simplest form by Nigerians?
I think it's something that should start from primaries.
Okay.
Let pupils begin to understand what the whole concept
Of taxation is.
all about, so that they don't begin to visit it with any kind of apathy in later life. If they understand it in that light, you will find that as they grow, that understanding continues. And for those that have passed that level, all the tax collecting organizations, they should have some kind of campaign, outreaches, where people will be clearly informed about what is done. And the government itself should take a bold step to be able to tell people, you see, there's the beauty of accountability. Bold step to be able to tell people what their tax monies are doing. Roads are being constructed. You don't know where the money is coming from. Hospitals are being constructed. You don't know how they get the money. Schools. So the government should also try to give a rundown of saying those states that it does with
Transparency.
transparency. You will find that will make things a little bit better.
Okay.
That is what I would advise.
Okay, thank you to our learned Sikh for joining us on today's episode. We really appreciate your presence. To my learned colleague Munira, thank you for also joining me. And to our wonderful viewers for staying with us, we hope you enjoyed our conversation. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media platforms for more engaging conversations. I remain your host, Cecilia Meme, and bye for now.